Okay, we've got some more participants slowly trickling in. Again, I'm Allison Sansoni. I'm helping with the marketing and communication effort behind the Vablet tool. And we'll get started in about another minute. We hope everyone is safe and in these unusual times. Everyone is certainly facing their own set of challenges, and we here at Vablet want to continue to explore solutions and services that will support your new routines and your business practices as you adapt. So, our technology helps support sales enablement, but it's not isolated to just a tablet. There's a lot of features that help support whatever you're facing right now. If you're doing remote presentations, if you're doing them in person. So again, we really appreciate your time today. And at the end of the day, less hassle at work means you can focus on what really matters in a time of crisis right now. So we're here to try and provide some solutions. Looks like we've still got a few people coming in, but I think we're good to just go ahead and dive in and get started. So we've got a great presentation teed up for today to help keep your sales conversations going despite the disruption that's happening in our business world, as I mentioned. Again, I'm Allison Sansoni. I've been working on the Vablet branding and marketing communications since the very beginning. And I'm going to be co-presenting today with Justin Putney from in5. He's got a fantastic technology that works with Adobe InDesign. We've got a lot of marketing people here today understanding how to bring more sales enablement into their organization. So thanks for joining with us on this, Justin. Are you there? You want to say hello?
Yeah, sorry, I had to switch back and unmute. Hi, everybody. Thanks for showing up.
Awesome. So again, what we're going to go through today, oops, just jumped ahead a little bit. What we're going to go through today is I just want to take a few minutes and talk through, many of you on this webinar familiar with in5, but may not be familiar with Vablet. So I want to do a quick overview of Vablet. And then we're going to jump into a few creative communication strategies when it comes to sales presentations. And then we're going to drill down even deeper, and the real meat of the presentation here today is looking at a demo. It's going to be an awesome step-by-step Julia Childs-like presentation from Justin on how to integrate his product into a more dynamic sales presentation. And then we'll take a look at how that fits into the Vablet ecosystem as well. But just to take a few minutes, Vablet was actually designed the year the iPad was launched, and the purpose was to facilitate rich media presentations for the emerging mobile workforce that we felt was going to happen with the introduction of the iPad. And especially wanted to support offline flexibility for those critical sales meetings. Just think V for video, but on a tablet, and you'll get Vablet. Our early adopters were in life sciences and a lot of medical device companies. They understood the value of sort of making the leap from laptop to tablet, and in some instances from really a binder to the tablet, you could say. So for over 10 years now, our technology is helping align the marketing team's development of rich media content with the sales team's goals to really generate revenue quicker. That's what we're all about here. And in today's world, it takes more than just a PowerPoint or a PDF to engage with targets, right? And so today we're focusing on the Adobe InDesign tool as an example of how that rich media is produced for our sales teams. When it comes to the sales team, they can instantly email or share those files. They're using their tablet for presentations, but there's so much more that they need to do to engage with their targets. And so there's a lot of interactivity that's built into Vablet. And then on other tools that they may use, for example, extends the value of Vablet by leveraging our integration with Salesforce. We're going to save you time and effort with a lot of automated features that when you're done conducting a sales meeting and you've used the Vablet platform, a lot of information has already been automatically added to your Salesforce. So again, we're all about saving time, saving effort, increasing productivity so that you can generate revenue quicker. It's the name of the game. Okay, so let's move on here. Why are we really here today? You could say, from a big picture standpoint, It's really about the pain point of developing engaging content. And before we really dive into just a couple of quick creative strategies, you can see here the study that was done by Intercall, especially in today's remote meeting scenario. It comes as no surprise that many of us, even many of you right now, I'm sure, are enjoying a cup of coffee or maybe lunch while you're watching this webinar. And distractions in the home are really no different than distractions that used to happen in the office or at work. So our goal with this webinar is really to talk about what it means to develop engaging presentations so that your audience is captivated by what you're trying to say. And we want to, again, get to that point where you're converting them quicker and earning revenue quicker, generating revenue quicker. PowerPoint presentations have a sort of negative connotation to it. If you've ever heard the phrase death by PowerPoint, and if you haven't, there's a really great TED Talk out there by David Phillips. And that's where we're really reinventing this with new tech. We're really reinventing sales presentations with new technology. So today, again, we're going to go through some communication strategies. We're going to talk about why HTML in particular. And then we're going to dive right into a demo that Justin has teed up for his incredible technology that's integrated with Adobe InDesign, and that's the in5 presentation tool. So just to start off with a couple of quick creative tips. At the beginning of really looking at what you're doing with your target, you're creating a visual and you're talking them through what might be a really complex project or product. And our brains are really hardwired for storytelling. So this is one of the first tips that you want to be thinking about when you're building out a presentation. We're all familiar with Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. And in business, that's really just problem, solution, and result or outcome, right? If we listen to a PowerPoint presentation with just bullets, only certain parts of the brain get activated. And overall, it hits our language processing parts and we translate it into meaning, and that's it. Nothing else really happens. But when we're being told a story, take, for example, depicting the problem. Well, research tells us things change dramatically in the brain. Other areas in the brain light up and they activate emotion, and that inherently creates a connection to your content. Just Google research on effects of storytelling in the brain and you'll understand there's a lot of information out there. You'll understand at a deeper level. So ways that you can apply this in business could include just a simple cause and effect form of storytelling. Metaphors and analogies work really well to make your content relatable and to make that light bulb go off. Maybe sharing a way that this solution impacted yourself, or a customer case study is an example of a story or storytelling. It's relational. It helps them apply it in a way that's story oriented. Stories are engaging, they're relatable, and they're memorable, which is really important. So let's talk about number 2, running through, again, just a few communication and creative strategies here. The second aspect I want to talk about is how images optimize impact. And if you had a reaction to the image that just showed up on the slide, good, that's the point. I'm not advocating for shock value or grossing your targets out, but these tips are not subjective. This is about how the brain as an organ works. So I'm going for relevancy here. And similar to what we talked about, how the brain processes text and storytelling, a photograph or an image relevant to what you're speaking about verbally will help your audience process the information 60,000 times faster. That's the light bulb going off of your target's head quicker. So you're getting through your presentation, you're conveying it more than just words and bullets. An image is going to help you convey that. And it's going to help them retain your information. Research tells us that images and video also make it 6 times easier to recall what the meeting or the meaning of your product was about. Again, just Google brain processing images and you'll find a bazillion articles. Many presentations can be focused on images of the product or charts and graphs, and those are really useful, but inserting a photograph of someone working in your industry or of the target's industry, or someone that is clearly experiencing the benefits that you're trying to convey, that's going to trigger an emotion or make it much more relatable to your target. And emotion basically is what we're after. Emotion accelerates that conversion. Logic does not trigger dopamine, emotion does. And the reason we care about that is the dopamine is known as the motivation hormone. It's known as the pleasure hormone. Facts and figures will be more impactful if you can incorporate a powerful image. Photographs connect a little easier than cartoon graphics. They appear more real. Even just adding a simple photograph with your menu or your navigation is going to help orient your targets to your subject matter. And also, many of you may relate to this. In addition, 65% of people are visual learners. So again, incorporating images is really critical. So the last quick tip before I hand the microphone over to Justin is just about straight up interaction. And the question, which is why HTML? Why not just PowerPoint? Well, the short answer is there's more interaction from the audience, more engagement when it comes to your navigation strategy that comes with an HTML presentation. An HTML presentation or brochure, sometimes you may hear the phrase HTML5, that's the same thing. This is the format that we're talking about. But an HTML format behaves like a website, and people are accustomed to websites and researching products or services. So an HTML presentation, it's kind of like a microsite with the most relevant info from your targets and what they want to see. And at the end of the day, HTML is just a bit sexier. Remember, look up Death by PowerPoint TED Talk by David Phillips, and you'll know what I mean. So from a design or a communication standpoint, you want to control the narrative during the presentation. You get to guide the target through the process. But the danger there is be careful of presenting too many options. The principles of web design are also aware of psychology behind too many options that are going to paralyze your audience. Imagine what it's like driving in a metropolitan area and having to read a half a dozen road signs at one single exit to get to your destination, as opposed to just this. Think like a navigator. When do you want to steer them off the main path? And then when do they want to get back on that main path? Especially if you share your presentation file with your targets and they're in the driver's seat. The advantage is they'll be engaging with your content, which is what we want, but giving them the right amount of options and the right sequence of viewing information also means you're in control of where they go. They're still in the driver's seat, but you're in control, leading them through that sales pitch, sort of in an automated way. So this can also be valuable for compliance, I would add. The analytics from the Vablet platform will report that the file was viewed during a meeting. It'll report how your target interacts with it if you share that file with them. There's a lot of value to the analytics features that we have built into this content. So using the real estate of your slide to just communicate first, and then the navigation becomes the strategy, is what you're going for when you're building out an HTML presentation. Presenting your audience with too many options can be just as overwhelming as too many bullets. Another thing I want to mention is a couple of other important use cases that our customers are using it for is, for example, a self-guided tablet in a kiosk at a trade show, when we get back to going to trade shows, in retail spaces or other public forums where you may display a tablet and you need the self-guided function of that material. That's where that really comes in handy as well. So just to recap, from a communication standpoint, look, we're hardwired for storytelling. See if you can build storytelling into your verbal. Leveraging images is going to help your audience connect with your information quicker. And then think like a navigator to engage through interaction. When it comes to the HTML format, the advantage is a more dynamic and sexy presentation experience for the audience, yet you get a more control of the information. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Justin. And let me stop this share here. And Justin, you should be able to take over from here.
All right. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I'm going to pick up where Allison left off, talking about those different communication strategies and actually getting the rubber to meet the road here. And I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. If you have questions, put it in the chat pod. We've got a lot of stuff to cover in a short amount of time, but I will hang around at the end as long as we need to answer all the questions, and we'll have contact information available at the end. So I am assuming most of the people on here are in design or marketing. And so we're going to take your communication skills, your visual communication skills, and see how you can apply them to deliver these materials to salespeople without coding so that your company makes more sales. And I know for most of you, HTML might be a 4-letter word. And I just want to reassure you that we're just talking about the technology because we need some word to talk about it and compare it, HTML versus PDF or another format. But this is all going to be visual in InDesign. I want to start off showing you just a few examples of things that people have created with in5, just to show you some of the differences, and then I'll go into how some of these interactive pieces are made and the animation pieces and all the neat stuff that's in here. So first I want to show you an annual report, and this I love because it just has amazing animations. And most of this is the designer's creativity. So this is just like super engaging. Again, talking about bringing the viewer in. And there's something about the pages coming in like this that really draws me in. And I want to get to one page in particular, this one, to see that animation. I spent some time reverse engineering that type of animation, so I'll show you how that works in InDesign in just a little bit. This is a newer version of the report. You can see this is also exported with in5, but this is a different format. They're using a flipbook, so it can kind of give you some idea about the flexibility of the output. And then I want to show you in this one, this is just has some beautiful illustrations, but it also has all these interactive elements. It has this pop-up to start with, so we're going to take a look at pop-ups in InDesign as well. And it's all built around that. This is just a little slow loading, so I'm not going to wait for it. This one has this cool animation to start with, which is fun. It's got, again, kind of these pop-ups. This is all built in InDesign without coding. And watch when I click on this, it has a cool animation. What we're going to be looking at today is this document I've created with a bunch of these different things. So I'm going to go through here and show you several of them, and then we'll actually look at the document in InDesign. So on the first page, I have a table of contents. This was created in InDesign automatically, and it's linked up. So I'm mixing some of the content and the interactive elements for the titles here. So you can see scrolling frame, and then in this newsletter, or whatever kind of document you want to think of, this is like the topic of the week. So it's got a scrolling frame in here. This is one of those strategies Alice was talking about, and something I focus on with people in terms of thinking about digital versus print, because a lot of people who are used to using InDesign are designing for print. Well, the nice thing is if you're designing for salespeople, say, and they've got to make a quick elevator pitch to somebody, you don't want to have everything on every page all at once, and you don't need to with digital. And a scrolling frame is one way to selectively show content to not overwhelm the person viewing it. And then if they're interested, they can see more. If they're not interested in this, you can move on to the next page. So here's an example of video. There are a lot of different ways to add video. I think there'll probably be questions about that. Again, if you have them as we're getting into it, put them in the chat pod. We'll try and answer them at the end. There's also a menu that pops up here. And so I can go to the next page that way. And there's some simple animation on this page. And then on the next one is this where I'm trying to replicate the animation from that annual report. So that's kind of cool to look at. Here's some animation mixed with object states. So this actually changes the content. Again, we've got all kinds of content in here, but you don't have to see it all at once. Here's another example of that. This is a 3D flip card, very easy to create with in5. I'll show you that in a couple minutes. Here I've got a slideshow. Actually, this is 3 different slideshows that I built. So they're just going to cycle through images and animate them as I go. And then here's a pop-up example, kind of like what we saw in the UK energy landscape example just a few minutes ago. And then thinking about nonlinear navigation, I'm just going to set this as an example. So Allison was talking about, having this big landscape, and think of it as a bunch of highways or like a forest, and what you're doing is you want to have all the information there, but you want to create pathways for the person viewing it or the salesperson using it. And one way you can do that is to have them tap on something and show different content. So if they tapped on the blue pill, they get this option. And I made it blue so you can see it, but theoretically, you could click on these things and the end resulting option could look exactly the same. The viewer doesn't even know that they've gone down a tunnel, and you're just giving them information that's relevant to them as opposed to shotgunning them with absolutely everything that you have. And finally, at the end here, this is a 3D animation. This one happens to be interactive. They can play by themselves, but here I can rotate this and spin it around. And I just want to show you this piece also is responsive. I made 2 different layouts. So if I shrink this down, I've got my other layout. You can see the menu is now up at the top here, and the pages have been designed differently. So like the 3D flip card, for example, it's different. I made these vertical. The slideshow is designed differently for this vertical layout. So I'll show you that in a moment as well. And then one more thing, speaking of presentations specifically, because that's kind of the topic we're on, show you some presentation specific features that InDesign has, or excuse me, in5 has, and it allows InDesign to work sort of more like PowerPoint you would expect. So here I can double click, go to full screen, just like a PowerPoint or a keynote, and I'll next through it. And I'm just clicking the forward arrow, and it's generating the bullets one at a time. I go to the next page, and it's building animations one at a time as I click the arrows. And then you can also create these sophisticated transitions, and they can be reversed if you go backwards. And here's a vertical one, and backwards. And then there's just a super crazy one to show how cool that can be. Okay, so those are all the output examples. Let me show you this file in InDesign. So here's the first page. As I mentioned, this is a live table of contents. It's based on the titles of the pages. So if I just wanted to change this to, say, scrolling frame, I could delete that, go back to the first page, select my text frame, go to the layout menu and say update table of contents. Now it just says scrolling frame. So you can see that is a live table of contents, and in5 automatically knows what to do with it on the output. In the pages panel here, you can see that here are my 2 different layouts. So this is the main layout, which is my landscape layout in this case. Basically, I just made it as iPad dimensions. So I made a landscape and a portrait, but you could also make a phone layout. You can do multiple layouts. And then I have some settings so it's scaling every which way in between. If I go back to this, and you can see that it's always proportionally scaling in between before it switches to the layout. So let me go back to InDesign, and let's look at some of the other pages. So here's the scrolling frame. This is really not complicated. It's just, if I go into the text, you can see the text frame. You see that blue rectangle? The text frame is much taller. And then I have this outer frame, if I hit escape again, acting as a mask. And then up here, once I install in5, I have access to this in5 menu, which has the export options. We'll take a look at the end a little bit. But it also has these interactive widgets, and one of them is the scrolling frames. And all I've said is I want this to scroll vertically. That's all I had to do to set that up. And here's the video. Similarly, in5 picks up most of the settings you have from the media panel, but it also has an interactive widget specifically for video, which adds a lot of other functionality. So in addition to autoplay, it lets you mute the video, which is what a lot of browsers need to actually allow video to autoplay. There are lots of other ways to include animation if you don't need audio. So if you have questions about that, put them in the chat pod. This is just an MP4 video, which is what I would recommend. It's H.264 encoded, which is just a standard that works in all web browsers. And I just placed it like I would place a graphic. So hit Command D or Control D and place this MP4 video. There are ways to put remote videos on here. If you got something from YouTube or Vimeo or some other site that has an embed code, you can do that as well. It's under Object Insert HTML. You paste it in. That'll export right to the output as well. You can also change this. So I've got a big play button. You could have the full controller with progress and all the controls. The other thing you can do is trigger an end action. So after the video, you could have it automatically go to the next page, or you could trigger some new thing to appear and maybe have a call to action at the end of it. So a lot of stuff you can do with that. So just wanted to give you a hint of that. Okay, here's the animation. Now I'm going to switch over to a document that I have that's sort of unfinished in a way, and I'll show you how to set up the animation for these check marks. All you do to animate in InDesign is select the items. You go to the animation panel, which can be found under Window, Interactive, and choose a preset. So in this case, I just chose Fade In, and I might change the duration of that a little bit. I can update other properties, and then I can actually make the timing. So in this case, it didn't quite pick them up in the right order, and I'd named them specifically, which is very helpful. You can do that in the animation panel. If you select them one at a time, you can see I can give it a name. So in the timing panel, all I need to do to change the order of them is to rearrange them. So I'll put 1 above 2 and 3 at the end, and then they'll play in order, and I can preview those in the EPUB interactivity panel. And then to add it to a button, it's pretty similar. Use the buttons and forms panel. If you don't have a button, let's say this wasn't a button yet, all I have to do is give it a type name of button, or excuse me, a type of button. Let me undo and show you. You can also just go to add an action and it will turn it into a button. So if we add an animation and we say we want to do check 1, then I can add another animation and say I want it to be check 2, and add another animation and check 3. And now when I preview it and I hit the replay button, it'll play them over. So there you've got animation and interactivity triggering animation, a couple of minutes. So super easy. Next, there is this more sophisticated animation. This thing needs a tutorial on its own. So I put the link for the Jar Productions YouTube channel. I might put it up there. I might put it in an animation course, but if you're interested, let me know, or subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll be putting up stuff like this. This one is pretty interesting because it involves sophisticated timing. So you can see these are linked together, is indicated by these lines on the outside. And then I did some advanced things like trying to get them positioned right. There's this cool feature, since there are no keyframes in InDesign, I just turn on the show animation proxy, and this circle shows me where the animation starts. So I was able to set things up. I can adjust this line. You can see right now this green line doesn't quite match the yellow line. So I'd move that over and make sure it matches up. So it was a lot of hand tweaking like that to get that to work. But it's a fairly simple technique. It just requires some back and forth. Okay, so something we're going to use heavily creating interactivity are object states. And I'll just show you quickly how those work. You just create these different states. And then just like we added animation to the buttons in one of the previous pages, I can add object state actions. So this has a go to state action and says to go to that first state. And you can create all kinds of things like this, including the pop-ups, which I'll get to momentarily. So the 3D flip card, I'm just going to quickly show you. This is also a multi-state object. So it has 2 states. And then I go up to the interactive widgets and choose the 3D flip card, and that's set to be horizontal. That's all it took. I just choose a horizontal setting, and it's a 3D flip card. Nothing else to do there. Slideshow, and sorry, I'm running through really fast because we just got so much cool stuff to look at. Again, just another interactive widget. You can see down in the object states panel that it is a multi-state object, and all I do is I've set it using the slideshow settings. I want to autoplay, I set the timing and a crossfade, and then I've adjusted these slightly differently. So these have different timing, so they kind of are staggered. Right, so all this is really simple, easy to create interactivity, no coding whatsoever. Here is same deal. These are buttons. This is a multi-state object, and this is an important concept that you can create an empty state, and that's what gives you the kind of pop-up effect. So when it switches states, it goes from not appearing to appearing. It's got a button inside here that lets you close the pop-up by going back to the empty state of the multi-state object. One thing I want to show you is there are these build wizards. So if you want to create a pop-up really quickly, you can select this, and I'll go with, let me go with dark because you'll see the contrast, and make it a large dialog. And this will just build a dialog box for me. And it'll put all the interactivity in it, like the close button, and it'll create a tinted background that'll close it as well. So now all I would have to do is to put my pop-up content in there. Now, and then of course, trigger it with a button, trigger that object state. So I have this thing with two object states, pop-up and empty, go back to empty, and there's the starting state. That's what it's going to look like until it gets triggered by a button. That's an easy way to create a pop-up with in5. And similarly, you can see there's a menu one in there. Maybe I'll just go ahead and do that really quickly, show you how I created a menu very, very fast. Build wizard, menu builder. I'm going to use the bookmarks, which were automatically created by when I created the table of contents, it generated bookmarks for me. So no work to do there. Otherwise, I can generate it from paragraph styles. But let me go ahead and do that. And I think I just did a compact menu. And I'll do this one as light. I'm just going to run through and build. You can see since I built the menu previously and updated my styles, you can actually see that it looks like the menu I already have in there, which is kind of cool for the most part. Yeah, it's pretty close. So that built an entire menu. You can see the little button icons. This is all active. This is a working menu, and it's got open and close capabilities. And I can go in and style this however I want. Nonlinear navigation. Okay, just another trick with multi-state objects, right? Somebody clicks on one of these buttons, I take them to a different state. So it's really just how you use your creative thinking. And then last page, this is an image sequence. This is also done with an interactive widget. I created this in a 3D application with a free model that I found online. Put it into Photoshop, made it into an image sequence. So it's like PNG1, PNG2, PNG3. Just attach that folder and set it up to swipe. And so what you get in the output, if I go to the last page, is this swipeable model. So this might be great for all kinds of stuff you're doing if your salespeople are showing things to your potential customer. And so once I have all this done, then what I'm going to do is just go up to export. And I'm not going to get into details because we're running short on time. There's an advanced export and there's now an easy one. So you just go about and choose what kind of piece you're making, and it'll pre-select options for you. Otherwise, you can use the full dialog and you've got all kinds of options, different page formats. I've got responsive layouts in this one. And I can add SEO if it's on the web. I can add Google Analytics. I can add a bar at the bottom with a PDF download and thumbnails and yada yada yada. All kinds of cool stuff. There's built-in image optimization, and here's some of the additional scaling. Okay, so I've exported this. At the end, what I get. This is the only part where it's relevant where I'm making HTML, because who really cares what format it is, it's flexible, it's open, it works everywhere. But now I'm dealing with the files, I've got actual HTML. If I want to get this into Vablet, I'm going to right click and just compress these items into an archive. And then I'll give it a new name. And this is basically the trick. So let's call this in5 output for Vablet. And this is version 2 because we tested out one before this. And I'll give it a file extension of ZHTML instead of zip. And I'll say to use that. And then I pass that over. In this case, I'm going to hand it back to Allison to show you how she puts it in Vablet.
Okay, awesome. Good stuff. Let me jump into how that looks from here. So what you should see on my screen right now is I've got my Finder here, and I've got Vablet open in a browser. And essentially Vablet has that centralized hub that works online so that you can manage all of your media and disseminate all of it at once to multiple team members. So I've got Justin's file here on my computer. I'm just going to drag it into the library, and then it will appear on my device, but I'm going to show you that on the actual tablet. So what I'm going to do right now is actually show you my iPad screen. Let's try this again. So now this is essentially the Vablet platform, and we're going to open the webinar folder. And now this is Justin's file, and we're able to load that just as if we are in our meeting right now. I can actually tap on any of this stuff. I'm going to jump directly to that first page. Again, you're looking at this on my iPad. I'm able to easily manipulate any of this information. I'm going to go ahead and advance the screen and hit play. The video plays flawlessly. Wonderful. I can tap the menu in the lower right corner and jump ahead to that awesome 3D model. And I'm just using my finger across the iPad screen and showing how it can actually move that content. Let's go back to one of the flip cards. You can tap on any of these. This is where you're actually controlling the information in the presentation so that they're not seeing all of this content at once. You're going to be able to control the presentation, but then when you share this file afterwards, your targets are going to be able to interact with it. You're going to engage them more. They're going to see what they want to see. They're going to have questions in their head. They're going to revisit. They're going to want to revisit information that was in the presentation. Well, now you're giving them a really simple guided tour through that information that they're going to remember what it looked like. And here, I'll take my iPad right now and rotate it, and you're going to see the responsiveness works beautifully. We'll tap on one of these here. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to hold on to my iPad at the same time. And information appears. I'm going to tap through and look for the contact information I need. I'm going to go back to a previous screen. Back again. So I think you get the gist. I could continue playing all day long, actually. That's really good stuff. Let me see here. I'm going to go back to our presentation. Sorry, hang on one second, guys. Oh, you know what? It's actually in play mode. So here we are. So, wow, I mean, if your head is spinning, that is normal. We're going to stick around here and take a look at a few questions that have been entered in chat, but feel free to reach out to either of us for additional questions or to take a deeper look. And we've got a question here about, from Alexi, let's see, how can we use or leverage the export tool to embed content into an email newsletter? Paul, I think you're online, or Justin, if either of you want to take that one.
This is Paul from Vablet. To be able to email HTML content, the content that Allison was showing you on the iPad also works on a browser, as kind of Justin was demoing. So in Vablet, you would just tap. We would then send a URL to your prospect client, and they would tap on it, and now it opens it's called a microsite. It'll just open it and play via a link. Or Justin, if you want to chime in on how other people you know are sharing your HTML5 presentations via email.
Yeah, I mean, the basic, this comes up a lot, and the basic thing to understand is that even though email in theory has HTML in it, it's HTML from like 1999. And there's a lot of security restrictions in email, so it doesn't include any JavaScript, which means no interactivity. And even the CSS is like circa 1999, which is what controls the styling. So the idea that you're going to have a rich experience in email, just let that leave your mind. It's just a lot of people want it, but it's not there. And honestly, what you want to do is to get your reader out to a page where they can really interact and engage, and you can really have their attention. Because in email, really all you're trying to do is get them to the next step. So what Paul suggested in Vablet is a great way to do it, to send them a URL in email, and then they can open it. The Vablet stuff is going to work. You can distribute it privately to your Salesforce or to people on your team, but you can also create these specific URLs for specific people and more public URLs. And then if you're doing it outside of Vablet, it's kind of similar. It's just more DIY. You're putting the files up on your server, and then you're sharing that URL with the people. But there's always going to be like an extra step with email. You just can't have super rich content in email. And even if you try it and it works on some email client you're testing, it's not going to work on 99.9% of the clients that people are actually reading in. So yeah, the trick in email is to get people out of email.
Okay, we've got a couple of other questions here. Can you show the easy export options again, please? We've got a question.
Sure. Let me
stop my share.
Okay, share my screen again. Yeah, so I'll show you the easy export option, and really there's just a huge amount of flexibility. What happened when the original dialogue, so in5 has been around for about 8 years now, and it's been a process of continual improvement, and I've kept adding things to it. And what happens when you add stuff and add more options, it gets really complex. What I'm trying to do is give designers the flexibility that a developer has. So you can do all kinds of stuff that a developer would normally do, but without having to code. But there's still complexity. So this is the simplified version that if you just select basically, here's what I'm making, it'll choose the options for you. And you can make a selection and then click advanced after you've selected something here, and it'll take you to the full dialogue with those settings. So if you want to tweak one thing, you're like, oh, I really like the, you know, I don't quote me on which things are in which setting, but let's say I choose this modern digital, but it has social sharing buttons and I don't want those. I select that and then I go to advanced and I can toggle off the social sharing buttons. But those are the options there. Feel free to take a screen cap of that. There's a lot of different stuff you can make.
Thank you, Justin. And then some of the questions that have come in, does Vablet embed files onto websites? So the answer is you could. Vablet itself is a fully self-contained platform that can render your content on a browser, on a phone, on an iPad, on a Windows computer, on an Android. But if you wanted to take a link from Vablet to, say, the content Justin just showed, and just share that content as a link and put that link on your website, that is also possible. That's one question. And then, sorry, getting back to the chat, if you use the QA feature, it's much easier. Please mention the YouTube channel again. What is it called?
Is this the Jar Productions one?
Yeah.
All right, I'll put that in the chat panel. I'm having trouble seeing the Q&A right now with my screen. I'm just typing it in now. It's just youtube.com/ajarproductions.
Okay, let's see. We got another chat coming in. Let's get up to the top here. Awesome. We've got so many questions coming in. Give us a quick second. Let's see. Paul, I can't remember if you covered the question that someone is asking about being responsive, similar to how a WordPress page was responsive.
The answer is, if the content is responsive, then yes, Vablet knows if you're on an iPhone, portrait, landscape, iPad, Windows tablet, desktop. So yes, Vablet is a responsive platform. The thing about Vablet that separates it from just doing a normal web app is Vablet takes all the content and moves it to that local device. So it works offline. And even though in today's day and age, we're not going to trade shows and events, but imagine you've made beautiful presentation content, you can now move it to your Windows computer, now take it to a trade show, and everything is fully functional offline. Somebody said, I've been using Vablet for 7 years while working in a Fortune 500 company, and this is definitely a valuable asset for marketing teams. Thank you for that. So this is to all panelists, Justin. My team creates presentations in PowerPoint currently, and we have to create a PDF with videos so we can provide content to our customers they can keep. Can InDesign also convert the InDesign file to a PDF in a format that can be viewed universally on laptops?
Okay, so you can definitely take the same document and create a PDF. What you'll find, and the reason we're talking about HTML at all, is that the PDF does not support most interactivity. And I have a whole article on all the details about this, but most of it was built on Flash. And Flash used to be bundled with Acrobat and Adobe Reader. It's not anymore. Flash is dead. And none of that stuff works. And we've now got a zillion different readers that people are using. And on top of that, it didn't support animation or object states, a lot of the stuff that I showed today. So you can make a static PDF, but you can't put video into it. I know there is a workaround within Vablet having PDF for videos, but once you're distributing that PDF, there's no consistent way anybody's going to be able to view a video in it. Yeah, you could link out from there, but yeah, I mean, this is the whole reason we're talking about HTML versus PDF, is the PDF just isn't going to handle most of that stuff.
And then somebody asked a question about analytics. So the value of a sales engagement platform like Vablet are the abundance of analytics. Not only do we know, right, who has the file, so which one of your salespeople actually is looking at the file, but we know how engaged they are. How long are they looking at it? Right, did they email it to their client or prospect? Did the prospect open the email? Did the prospect actually look at the file you're creating? So having beautiful content is a great start, but then analytics really help. In today's AI-driven world where we're all heading, you really want to know how your collateral is being used, if it's being used. You've created this beautiful, 50-page PDF, but if people only look at pages in 1, 2, and 4, maybe you create shorter ones. Maybe you put a video in your presentation and it's a 5-minute video, but people only look at the first 45 seconds. So content plus analytics equals success.
Yeah, and I would just add, this is especially valuable for compliance. You're going to have analytical reporting that proves a particular target saw the information that needs to be seen. It also is really important for version control. So I know there was someone asking about, whether you need internet access, and that's the beauty of it. You don't need internet access per se on the device while you're conducting the presentation. But then once you bring it back online, it's going to sync back up. If your marketing team is working on the hub, working on the admin console, and making updates to that content, or looking at the analytics and adding more information, once your device hits that Wi-Fi signal, you're going to get all the updates, and you're going to know that you've got the right version right in front of you that you're working with. So that's the critical part of how the internet access works with that. Let's see what else we've got.
And the presentation, go on, sorry.
Oh,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
sorry.
Justin.
Sorry, I want to answer one that was up high because I think it's relevant to everybody. I answered it in the chat pod, but the question was about internet access and is it required? How are the files hosted? Because I think this is a big one for a lot of people. They want their content to work offline. And this is super important if your salesperson is making like a literal elevator a pitch, right? And they don't have internet access or it's slow. They've got like 30 seconds of a doctor's time or something. Yeah, that's one of the really awesome things about using Vablet for this kind of thing. And correct me if I get anything wrong, Paul or Allison, but when you push content in your web console, it's going to go out to all your salespeople's devices who have access to it. It's going to update if it needs to update, and it gets downloaded in the background. And so they just have the newest version of everything, and it's offline. You know, if you built an offline presentation that doesn't link to outside content, it's totally downloaded on the device. So I think that's a big deal for a lot of people. So I wanted to make sure to call that out.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. That's a great, way of, again, incorporating storytelling, understanding the situation that many of our customers are in and where they need that quick access. And you don't have to hassle with the Wi-Fi location, the Wi-Fi at your location. Let's see, we got another question. I was just kind of scanning as well. Can you discuss using web fonts versus having to export as images? And if you're really working with a straight up PDF, or the way the PowerPoint and integration works with Vablet, it's going to embed that. But Justin, you may speak to that from your standpoint in developing content.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can definitely use web fonts and export them, and they will get embedded. Again, if you want to be totally off, so there's two things. You can embed local fonts. You can also sort of append web fonts, like Google fonts or Typekit fonts that are out on the web. The qualification is those are not going to totally work offline, right? Because they're going to call out to the web. So you have those options. I have videos on how to set those up. But yes, you can embed the fonts. You can have live text. For most stuff, I recommend just exporting the text as images, which is one of the options in the dialogue, just because it's simple and it looks exactly like your layout. The web is not as sophisticated as InDesign in terms of typography, so you're going to see changes. And even if it were as sophisticated, it's going to have different rendering engines and different browsers. So your line breaks are going to be a little different and stuff like that. It really depends on what's important to you in the document. If you're really prioritizing SEO and the text needs to be selectable for people to copy or something like that, then you might want to have live text. But for a lot of cases, I recommend just rendering them as images, especially if this is going out to a sales force. But you have the option either way.
Great, and I've got a question here. I see Allison is using a Mac as Vablet cost platform. Absolutely. I mean, the short answer is yes, but really the way it works is you're using the admin console in a browser. And so that's your centralized hub. And then you're disseminating all of your files or information to your sales force that's out in the field. They can be on a Windows device, they can be on a laptop, they can be on an iPad, they can be on an iPhone. We're also working on an Android version. So that it works for both the marketing team and it works for both the sales team out in the field on multiple types of device types. Let's see here. We've got web fonts. I'm just kind of scanning to see. I think we've covered all of the questions.
I'm seeing more in.
Oh, sorry, Justin.
I'm seeing some more in the chat. I don't know if you're.
Yeah, using HTML5 format is useful for uploading and presenting on Vablet, but not for providing content for the customer to keep. No, actually, you can share a link to that file. So again, because all of the files are centralized on the Vablet console or the dashboard, when the salesperson is sharing content with their target, let's say afterwards you want to send them a copy of the HTML file, you can actually send them what would be a link. And then that's going to work because all of your information is stored on your account on a console. Your target is going to be able to open that and view the presentation in a web browser. And Paul, you're probably going to take that a step further in answering that question a little differently.
Yes.
Did I miss anything in there?
So it's just like emailing a link to a website. But you're emailing a link, in this case, to content. So your recipient sees a URL, which they're used to. They click on it, and then the presentation is available. So yes, you can share your content. And if they want to keep that link around for 30 days, they can keep that link around for 30 days. Vablet's used a lot in regulated industries, but if you change the underlying presentation, then the link will die, because it wouldn't be accurate anymore. But a lot of our clients have been sharing collateral via links for years, just because you get the improved analytics. We know not only was the email opened, is what you know if I sent you an attachment, but with a link, I know if you clicked on it. And then with link analytics, we know if you clicked on it and now you were clicking on it and looking at it for 5 minutes. And that's just the beginning of it. And just imagine making HTML forms that capture data and everything to help close a sale. So if you're a salesperson or a service person, you're going onto somebody's house and you want to show them what a bug treatment looks like, and you go through this little termite. This is what we do. Here's a video of us, killing these little insects or doing whatever. And then when we're all done, take the order. So content plus form plus remote delivery when the world goes back to normal is like an ideal solution.
I was just going to add on to that, imagine that this is what we were talking about early on in the communication strategy, okay? Because when you're using HTML to build your presentation, on the one hand, you have control over what they see next, and you can make it a really nice experience because it looks a little different than a PowerPoint. And then when you send that to them in HTML format, again, you're controlling what they see when and next. Otherwise, you're just sort of sending them a PowerPoint, which typically is shared as a PDF, and it's very static. So it's just a really great dynamic experience when you're sharing that. And I see someone asked, just clarifying the online aspect of this. Yes, once you go offline with your device, or let's say you update all of your content in the world as we knew it about a month ago, you're updating your content in your device, you're visiting your target in their office, you're updating it before you arrive there because you don't want to have to hassle with their Wi-Fi, right? This is the scenario that we're talking about when it comes to offline. You've got what you need, it's there, you run the presentation, and then once you return to your office, or if you go to a Starbucks, or if you do visit their Wi-Fi there at the office, yeah, it will sync automatically, and any updates that may have been made by your marketing team back in the office on the console is going to hit your device. So yeah, essentially you do have to be online to receive updates and to synchronize, but Vablet is fully functional. You have full access to any file, including HTML dynamics. You have access to all of that offline. Let's see. Yeah, you have to be online at some point. Thank you for answering that, Justin. Let's see, Rebecca. Oh, the pricing we're going to go over next in a second. Sales team, this is a good question for you, Paul, I think. So sales team delivers their pitch and the client asks for presentation. What kind of security is in place for the client to access the file, but no one else?
So because the files are, like, first of all, we have analytics on the files, so we know that who you sent it to, we know how often they looked at it. If they want to share the link, that we really can't help, but if you have set the link to expire in like 10 days, or we can even work on reducing the time frame if you need to, you can determine really what you want to do with the link. We're just coming up on 10. Possible to upload a previously uploaded Vablet doc within a document that you upload, such as a button to bring up related content. So the answer is any file that's in the Vablet platform can be linked to any other file in the Vablet platform. So we're working on a presentation with a client. They're watching a video on a certain kind of cancer treatment. And then when you finish watching the video, it launches up a form. People fill out the form, and now you have a new patient. So yes, you can link any content that you want.
I want to address the video question. I mean, I don't know if that question was directed specifically at Justin from an InDesign standpoint, but essentially your production of a video with voiceover is going to need to be handled outside of Vablet, but Vablet can handle any type of video format. So I think the short answer is I'm not quite sure of the intricacies of InDesign and whether you can incorporate voiceover into a guided presentation within that. Justin, you might be able to best answer that. But again, the short answer is yeah, as long as you're producing it all in whatever tools you're using to have that MP4 as an output, it will work within Vablet. Anything to add to that, Justin?
Yeah, I put in a question to get some clarification from David there, but I think I mean, the one thing I can say you could do with in5 is you can have auto-playing slideshows, and if you break your video into sections as if they're slides, You can have them auto navigate, or you could have a video play with voiceover. And if you don't, have the precise timing, you can be talking and then say the video stops. You can keep talking, you finish, and then you could click a key and go to the next slide. It could start the next video. So again, I'm kind of guessing at what you're going for, but that's one thing that in5 and InDesign could add to that process, above and beyond like a straightforward single video file.
And then 2 questions. One was, can the file be secured with a password? And the answer is, in the Vablet platform, yes. But if you have a normal microsite on a website, your HTML coder would have to write a little login or an auth door. And it's coming up on 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I think, wow, it's a lot of good questions, which again, just sort of gives you the opportunity to reach out to either us here at Vablet or Justin at in5 and take a deeper dive into what you're looking for and how these tools can really work for you. We are, in terms of the pricing, I think Justin has information available on his website. Justin, you could speak to that. From our standpoint, it really depends on the size of the team, but we are offering a 30% discount for new users that come out of this webinar. So please contact us or engage with the email notifications that you're getting from this webinar. Justin, did you want to speak to pricing?
Yeah, I can give you a general idea. The best thing to do is just go to in5.ajar.pro and click on the buy button. You'll get to see the different options. It's a subscription. You can get it monthly or annually. Annually, it costs half as much, but the monthly you can cancel at any point. And I'll say that the annual starts at like $240 a year, US dollars. And then there's a pro version at $360. And then if you want those responsive features I was showing, that's $480. And then it all, as you graduate up, you get more users. So if you got a big team, that's something to consider but that should give you an idea of roughly the range of pricing.
Yes, and I see we've got someone brought up a phone number that I forgot to add to the slide there. Give us a call, reach out, and we'll help you kind of take a deeper dive and look at it. And if you're on our list, you're going to see our next webinars coming up, making your sales team happier with our automated Salesforce integration. Our date is to be announced, but that's the subject matter we've got teed up next. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us and taking time out of your schedule to learn a little bit about what we're doing. I'm just going to open up the microphone. Anything closing to say from Justin or Paul?
I'd just like to say a big thank you to Allison and Paul for having me, and a big thank you to everybody for attending and sticking around and asking interesting questions. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And it was good to be with you guys.
And Justin, it's always a pleasure working with you to see innovation and watch our company really for the last almost 8 years now. It's been amazing. But we saw the vision of adding video to tablets years ago, and then HTML. We've really been on the bandwagon since 2013. So to find tools that non-programmers can use to make rich, responsive HTML, so it works on a phone or a tablet or a huge screen TV or a monitor or a touch screen, is amazing. So Justin, thank you for taking the code away from HTML so marketers can create what they want.
All right, everybody, stay safe, stay positive. We're going to get through this together, and onward and upward. Bye-bye.